Jessica Alstrom, spiritual teacher, medical intuitive, and quantum integration specialist, answers your spiritual questions and assists you through understanding your personal process while providing tools and techniques to move swiftly through the journey back to light.
Hello and welcome to another podcast from Transcendence Wellness Center and Transcendence International Academy Consciousness. I am Jessica Alstrom, and I was inspired to do a podcast this morning on twin flames, soulmates, and karmic relationships. Thank you for emailing me your requests on which podcasts you would like me to create. It helps me a lot reading your emails and seeing what you guys are going through. And interestingly enough, I've been through all of this stuff myself, so I feel I can have a ton of compassion talking about these different types of relationships and kind of breaking them down so that we can really understand the roots and the basis and the lessons behind a lot of the relationships that we have in our lives. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Alstrom, and I own Transcendence Wellness Centers, and I'm putting together an international consciousness academy right now for teachers, seekers, and healers. And basically, it's a Master of Light university that teaches us basically how to become alchemists. Most of us are shadow hunters. You know, the thing is we don't need to learn the light. We need to uncover the dark. And as we begin to heal our own war within, we notice that the reflection of the war without starts to go away. And peace comes within and peace comes without, because we are the macro of the micro. We are the issue behind the bigger issues. And so this is a total self journey. This particular lifetime is not, we're not here to learn much. We're here to heal. We're here to heal and uncover all of the secrets of our timelines. We're here to heal all of the darkness of our pasts. And we cannot do that unless we totally expose ourselves and accept ourselves and surrender the aspects of ourselves that have been lost and hidden from our own love. So I felt inspired to do this podcast this morning, and I hope that if you're going through some sort of relationship issues or you want to understand your relationship better, hopefully this podcast will give you some insight. Now, I'm not a big labeler as far as twin flames or soulmates or karmic relationships. I don't even like to really label karma. I like to use the reference of cause and effect more than I would like to use karma. You know, this is a full circle universe, so what comes around goes around, and you know, time doesn't exist. So if we are going through something in the 16th century and it has not cleared anywhere on the timeline, we will clear it in this life, because this lifetime is the cleanup lifetime. We are literally cleaning out our closets in this lifetime. And that's why for us who are really working on our journeys, sometimes we're like, why do we keep attracting these relationships? Why do we keep attracting these issues and these body problems and, you know, these abundance issues? And I thought I cleared this, and I've done so much work. Well, you have to realize that if it's happening in this lifetime, it's happened probably in lots of lifetimes. It's probably been an ongoing theme, because we're not really creating things this lifetime that we've already learned. We're really kind of cleaning up our timelines in this particular lifetime, because we're moving through ascension. And as we move through ascension, what we're doing is we are moving back to light. And we cannot move back to light unless we pick up all the anchors and all the roots and all the dirt that is basically holding us back from being completely transparent. And transparency is basically without secrets. It's without pure clarity, pure understanding, pure love. So let's jump into it. So let's kind of go into the analogy of what most people think twin flames are. Twin flames usually are defined as the relationship of your dreams. They are the relationship that you wish for when you're a little girl, or a little boy. It's like the fairy tale. Well, from what I've seen, experienced, and seen in my office thousands and thousands of times, is that the twin flame relationship has has everything to do with just total destruction. And I know it because my husband and I were twin flames. And the way that I explain it is I call it the addictive relationship. It's the relationship that's usually filled with passion, extreme highs, extreme lows. I call it the wound mate relationship. It's like two wounded people come together and, are seeking wholeness. And instead, they find their greatest reflection of all the shadows that they've been hiding from themselves and from everyone else. And it is the relationship that cracks you open, and it smacks you awake, and it destroys parts of your ego that you didn't even know were there. And the reason why this relationship is so important is because this is where we do a lot of groundbreaking awakening. These are where we say, you know what, I don't deserve to be treated this way. And you start to look in the mirror. The love that you want to get from that person, they just somehow, some way cannot give it to you. And so we start to learn to give it to ourselves. So if any of you guys have followed my journey, you know that I've always talked about my husband, who was definitely he has become my soulmate after years and years of work. But when we first got together, it was like one of those kismet, instant, passionate, magnetic forces of nature that just could not be denied. It was like all rules and regulations were thrown out of the window, and I was going to be with this person. And nothing could have stopped me. It was very traumatic relationship for me because everything that I basically had been running from my whole life, I found in one person. And it was all the things that I loved and all the things that I hated about myself, and all of the buttons got pushed. And when we're looking at the twin flame relationship, we're looking at kind of the experience of probably what someone who is on heroin feels like. It's the best high in the world, and it's the lowest low, and for some reason you just can't quit. And you keep forcing your way into making the relationship something that it's not. You keep wanting them to be everything you need them to be. You see limitless potential in them. You see abundance of love. But for some reason, it's like you can't quite get it downloaded from that relationship. And it starts to bring up all of the issues that you have, all of the abandonment issues, the commitment issues, the betrayal issues, the suffering issues. All of those issues that are hiding way down deep in your own shadow are exposed in this twin flame karmic relationship. So if we're going to call it a karmic relationship, basically we're going to call it a cause and effect relationship. And you can't outrun yourself. So your biological system, your body, will be physically and sexually attracted to these wound mates because it's time to heal. If this is the lifetime that we have come to heal ourselves, then don't you think that our soul is going to make us attracted, our bodies are going to be attracted to the very thing that we need to expose? I'll just let that kind of sit with you and think back on your patterns and relationships, and think if you have actually experienced one of these twin flame karmic relationships before. Because if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a great passion filled with pain and suffering, but there's also love there. Because if there wasn't love in these relationships, we wouldn't stick around. We wouldn't be so addicted to these relationships. And basically the reason why we become addicted to these relationships is because there's so much soul work there. You know, I always say that your greatest spiritual teacher is the one that knocks you down the hardest. Because that's when we wake up. That's when we start saying, I deserve this, and I am better than this, and I deserve love, and wow, I didn't even know these parts of me were there. And if you don't fall victim to these relationships, and you can actually see the teaching aspect and all of the lessons that are hidden in every trigger, then what happens is you begin to process lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of karmic energy, cause and effect energy that's been stuffed in your timeline waiting to basically bloom. And this is the blooming relationship where all of those skeletons start to come out. And it's very important to be awake in these relationships, because it will very quickly turn into a perpetrator-victim, empath, narcissistic relationship where, one of you is suffering and one of you is controlling, and then you switch and take turns. And some of these relationships last lifetimes. You look at some elderly couples and they hate each other, yet they can't get away from each other. It's like there's so much unprocessed ego shadow work there that you can't get away from the person. And I will tell you, the more you resist someone, the less you can get away with them, get them out of your lives. They become stuck to you like glue, because whether it's fear or love is that deep magnetic draw, and so is fear. So if you're fearing this relationship, it's going to be so intoxicating, it's going to be very difficult to leave. So what you resist persists. So what you're afraid of sticks to you. And what these twin flame karmic relationships offer to us is they offer us our greatest, deepest reflection. Now, some of you are having these twin flame relationships, these karmic relationships with one or more of your kids, maybe one or more of your parents. You will feel like maybe it's a mom, there's this unconditional bond between the two of you, but it's at the very core of her. She just slowly destroys you. Or maybe it's a child who just, it becomes so difficult to manage that, you start actually resisting your own child. I've seen it. It doesn't have to be a sexual relationship, this twin flame. It can just be this kind of perpetrator-victim relationship where you can't quit each other. And it's this addiction where they get under your skin so deeply in a both positive and negative way that it is like a switch that you can't turn off. And I say that if you're in one of these relationships, good for you, because you are going to learn so much about yourself. I like to tell the story of my husband and I and how we met. And, I had been a big studier of law of attraction, and I was really great manifester. And so when it came time to kind of put together my ideal husband in the lab, I say, right, in the lab of my imagination, I began to write down all of these things that I wanted in another person. And I call it my 500 list. And I've done this with many, many clients where, you really have to start diving down deep into your imagination when you need to come up with 500 traits of this individual that you're trying to create in, the non-physical, and bring them down. And that's exactly what I did is, I wrote down family dynamics and looks and traits and personalities and, humor and parenting values and integrity values. And, it took me a really long time, but I finally did it. I finally came up with 500 qualities. And basically it was everything that I had ever wanted, maybe, that I didn't have. And I remember one day kind of looking at my list, and in some of the aspects started feeling very insecure, because I'm like, well, wow, if this person showed up right now in my life, would I be good enough? Because when you design your dream guy or your dream gal, you have to start looking in the mirror where your own self-worth is. Because if you manifest the perfect guy, are you going to feel worthy? So that came up, and I processed it because I really wanted to be in alignment with this person, and I thought I had done a really huge amount of work on myself, and so I was ready to manifest this dream guy. And I started using this affirmation, and this affirmation was, I mold my reality like I mold clay. It's very malleable, and it's all my creation. And I would say it, 100 times a week, and I would do my visualizations, and I would see him, and I would see us, and we would live life, and all the things that you do when you're really manifesting is you physically become the character, which means you have to vibrationally date this person. And I did. And I could feel it coming closer, because one night I actually had a dream about it. And I saw him from across the field, and he was exactly from the list, looks, personality, demeanor, everything. And I woke up and was very excited because I knew it was on its way. Well, long story short, a few weeks later, I see him, and it was instant. And I knew with every cell of my whole entire being that this was my guy. just down to the baseball cap he wore and the kid in his arms. It was exactly a one-to-one match of what I had been imagining. And when he finally introduced himself, his name was Clay. So you can't get more specific than that. So my soulmate, Clay, and if you're listening, babe, sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but this is a story for teaching. Basically, we just dived down deep into this twin flame relationship. It was like for 6 months, I don't even think that there was breathing going on. There was just infatuation and love and connection and communication and similar interests and values and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, it was insane. It was like, it was literally like what I would consider movie love. And it was so intoxicating that within 6 months we were engaged. After 6 months of that, we were pregnant with our son. And as soon as I got pregnant with my son, everything started to change. And, you know, I had been kind of abused as a kid, and I had healed a lot of that. I had done a lot of forgiving work, but what I realized is that I had not really worked on the issues within myself about all of that abuse. And my husband began to demonstrate very angry energy and frustrated energy and emotionally abusive energy. And, you know, here we are married and pregnant, so it's not like I can run, which was my old pattern, you know, just run away from the problems. I was stuck. And here is the love of my life, the one I created in the lab of imagination, who is basically become a shadow of everything that I've ran away from my whole life. And, you know, it really threw me into a dark night of the soul. And I was already doing a lot of my soul work. I was, you know, in the process of opening up all my intuitions, and I was becoming a medical intuitive, and I was starting to see thoughts. And so, you know, when you see your husband's thoughts, sometimes it's pretty scary anyway. So it began to scare me. This relationship basically began to scare me deeply. And what I realized is that he was just shadowing all of the fear of everything that I had ever run away from or not processed. So being as aware as I was, you know, I said, you know what, I can't run from this. I've got to take this negative energy. I've got to clear it. I've got to work with him. I've got to use him as my mirror so that I can clear all this energy so that I, you know, I don't have to keep feeling this, because it's just projecting and projecting and projecting. And because there was so much love there, you know, and because we had our son, it wasn't a relationship that I wanted to run away from. But after a couple of years, you know, of me really doing a lot of processing and a lot of work, and he did a lot of work and a lot of processing, we just got to this point where it was like, we can't do this anymore. And, you know, there was a lot of things that from my shadow past that I didn't think that he would love me for. You know, we all have been through that where we don't feel good enough. And, you know, he was kind of the perfect guy in my eyes. He had the perfect family. I didn't. You know, he had a great childhood. I didn't. So there's a lot of things about me that he didn't understand. And there was a lot of shadows that I pushed within him. And so it was very, very, very much a karmic induced twin flame addictive relationship. And we decided that after a while of processing, that the greatest thing that we needed to do in order to really mend our relationships and move it into a soulmate relationship where basically it becomes a partnership and not a wound relationship is that we needed time and space. And, you know, now that I've personally gone through this, I can recommend this to a lot of clients that I have. I do a lot of marriage counseling and I do a lot of relationship counseling. And, you know, am I an expert? Yes, because I have, you know, I've been through the trenches of hell and I've worked my way out of it. You know, I don't think that you need to find a marriage counselor who has the perfect marriage, because I don't think that exists. I think that the ones who have looked their own stuff in the face and seen the darkest parts of each other is a good teacher. And you will become a good teacher from these relationships that you're having right now because you have compassion. You know what this is like. So what we decided to do is we decided to do something completely alternative and basically create this progressive marriage where You know, we live separately, raise our children together as a family, meaning have dinners together, do things together, but we also had a lot of solitude. And I had days for myself, he had days for himself. He took care of his responsibilities, I took care of my responsibilities. And what it allowed us to do is it allowed us to move back into self-love and find the missing pieces of ourselves that we were upset with each other for not providing. You know, it's almost like that resentment that you get for your partner when they're not giving you what you need. I mean, the truth of it is when you start feeling that, you need to start giving yourself what you need, because they will never, ever be what you want, because what you want is you. The soulmate you seek is you. And they're just there to push all of your buttons until we recognize that. And so, you know, he went on a journey, I went on a journey. I dived down deep into what love was for me and who I was and where I wasn't loving myself and where I was afraid to be alone and where he was afraid to be alone. And we basically took this year and we did a lot of individual work. And then when we came together, we realized that we were sweating a lot of this small stuff, and a lot of the triggers were coming from the past, and they weren't even really that big of a deal. And we did this for a year, you know, and I don't know if anybody would agree with this type of, you know, resolve that we did, but for our family, it was not necessarily to be away from each other. You know, it's not that we didn't have other experiences outside of each other, but at the end of the day, we kept realizing at the base of who we were, we really did love each other. And we needed to humble ourselves and take responsibility for the mistakes. And, you know, I would say that me being the child that I was, I probably brought in 80% of the mistakes because, you know, I didn't know integrity as a kid. I didn't have like great family morals. I didn't have direction, you know, and that's exactly why I was so attracted to him, is because he had this great family and he was such a good person. And what I felt is the reason I had to leave for a while was because I didn't feel like a good person. And when you're around someone who you think is a good person and it brings out your feelings of not being a good person, you know, it really triggers you and it lowers your self-worth. And so I needed to kind of get time and space to feel through that. And that's what I did. And, you know, it kind of came full circle. And, you know, it moved into this soulmate relationship where it's like, at the end of the day, all there is love. No BS, no you're right and you're wrong, you know, open communication. But I'm going to tell you, it did not come from the time and space. It came from the work that we individually did with ourselves to fall madly in love with ourselves, because we were basically upset with each other because they didn't love us. We didn't love each other the way we wanted to be loved. And if you look at your relationship, I can guarantee you that's the issue. And you want to be loved a certain way, and you want them to be what you see deep down within them, all this amazing potential. And that is just not the way it works. It is a solo journey. The partnership is a solo journey of two whole people coming together to create. That is a partnership. That is a soulmate. I always say when you find your soulmate, it isn't like this crazy passion that's like you can't sleep or eat and dream. It's more of like finding your left arm, you know, and you're like, wow, I totally needed this. And finally, here it is. And now I can fully move and live life and pick up things and do things. And that's what our relationship moved into. It moved in from this insane passion and addiction to partnership, and two people who really didn't need each other, who just wanted to be together. So if you're looking at your relationships right now, and whether it be your parent relationship, your child relationship, or your spousal relationship, you know, look at where you are not self-loving. Everything you want to change about someone else, change yourself. Everything that really gets under your skin about the person who you're with is a reflection of what you're hiding from yourself. So yes, these relationships are our greatest teachers. And if we keep running from them, all that happens is we create another one. And then we just have this whole road full of these relationships that are basically unhealed versions of ourselves. So whether it's mom, your child, your father, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is, look at it as a great teacher and start finding gratitude for what they are showing you, because the shadow work is how we move into alchemism, how we become the alchemist. So it's not about learning about your light. You are light. It's more about studying your own darkness and falling in love with it and going, you know what? Wow, this is a really negative trait that I have. It's like I'm always trying to fix you. And it's not negative in the sense of bad and good. It's just a negative means like segregated, contracted. There's no expansion there, because when you try to, fix someone, basically what you're needing to do is fix yourself. And notice the hypocritical energy that comes from yourself and your partner. They will literally blame you for the things they are doing themselves. And you do the same thing. I can guarantee you, if something really triggers you about your kid, you are doing the same thing or have done the same thing. And I teach this in my academy about the trigger work, because finding the triggers is always about you. It has absolutely nothing to do with the other person. They are just acting as a greatest reflection of your darkest parts. So I hope this little intimate journey through my own personal relationship helped you understand your own a little better. This is something that we all go through. And if you're one of these people who are not in a relationship, okay, this is a very important piece. If you've not been in a relationship, or you can't find a relationship, or no matter what you do, there's just nobody showing up, or you end up just, these short relationships that don't even turn into relationship status, I have news for you. You are in a twin flame relationship with yourself. You are probably self-abusing. You probably have negative self-talk. You probably have big walls around you energetically to keep people out, even though you want someone. You don't feel good enough at some very core part of yourself. And so therefore you're in this codependent relationship with yourself. And a twin flame can be you. So if that's the case, then that's even easier, because who loves you more than you? Or who should love you more than you? I'm going to leave this food for thought today on this short little podcast. And if you want more information about ways to basically heal the shadow, we have lots of different processes that we teach. If you are a seeker, we have a master class that's basically 12 months of intensive, alchemy program. And if you are a aspiring spiritual teacher, we have an intense quantum life coaching program that is 3 months intensive, a year-long mentorship. And basically what that allows you to do is become a transcendence light coach. And we are all shadow hunters here. So we know the ins and outs of how to find and heal the patterns that are holding us back. And if you just want to incorporate some of our more famous shadow work processes, we do a certification for our time travel, which is all timeline work. And so please look for our website and investigate if that has any interest to you. Otherwise, I hope today's podcast has helped you understand your own relationship a little bit better. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, or on the iTunes. And feel free to email us at www.transcendencekc.com. Or personally, Jess Alstrom at Gmail for more podcast ideas. And I will talk to you all soon.